Intro music fades slightly to background. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're journeying back to a time of immense turmoil in Chinese history, a period that set the stage for one of the most famous eras of conflict and heroism, the Three Kingdoms. But before the legendary heroes we know, before Cao Cao, Liu Bei, and Sun Jian, there was collapse. This is the story of the Yellow Turban Rebellion, the empire's breaking point. To understand this massive uprising, we need to look at the state of the Han Dynasty in the late 2nd century. Imagine an empire rotting from the inside out. For decades, the imperial court had been a viper's nest of corruption. A group of powerful eunuchs, known as the Ten Attendants, had seized control, manipulating the young Emperor Ling. They sold offices to the highest bidder, meaning officials weren't chosen for their skill or virtue, but for their wealth. These corrupt officials then squeezed the common people dry to recoup their investment. Taxes became unbearable. On top of the already heavy imperial taxes, local officials levied their own, often demanding years' worth of payment in advance. For the average farmer, this was a death sentence. Their lands were taken, and their families were forced into servitude or starvation. It was a system designed to enrich the few at the catastrophic expense of the many. The social contract between the ruler and the ruled was completely broken. As if the political decay wasn't enough, nature itself seemed to turn against the people. A series of devastating famines, floods, and plagues swept across the land. The Yellow River, often called China's Sorrow, broke its banks repeatedly, destroying vast swathes of farmland. In the eyes of the populace, these disasters were not just bad luck, they were cosmic signs. According to the mandate of heaven, the philosophical cornerstone of Chinese rule, natural disasters were proof that the emperor had lost the favor of the gods and was no longer fit to rule. The heavens themselves seemed to be crying out for change. Into this desperate landscape stepped a man named Zhang Jue. He wasn't a general or a nobleman. He was a Taoist healer and mystic. Traveling through the countryside, he witnessed the suffering firsthand. He offered magical healing charms and preached a doctrine of a new, just era. His message was simple but powerful. The current blue heaven of the Han Dynasty was dying, and it would soon be replaced by a new yellow heaven of peace and equality. He founded a religious movement called the Way of Great Peace, or Taiping Tao. Zhang Jue's message resonated deeply with the millions of disenfranchised peasants. He organized his followers into a vast, clandestine network, a shadow government waiting for the right moment to strike. His movement wasn't just spiritual, it was highly organized. He and his two brothers, Zhang Bao and Zhang Liang, were known as the generals of heaven, earth, and man. They promised not just salvation in the afterlife, but liberation on earth. For people who had nothing left to lose, this was an electrifying call to action. The plan was for a coordinated uprising across the entire empire. The signal for the rebellion was the slogan, "The blue sky is already dead. The yellow sky will soon rise. In this year of Jiazi, let there be prosperity under heaven." The year Jiazi, 184 AD, was the beginning of a new 60-year cycle in the Chinese calendar, a symbolically potent time for a new beginning. Rebels wrapped yellow scarves or turbans around their heads, giving the movement its name, the Yellow Turban Rebellion. However, the rebellion didn't go exactly as planned. A traitor within the movement revealed the plot to the Han court just before the coordinated date. Forced to act prematurely, Zhang Jue launched the uprising in a scattered, disorganized fashion. Despite this setback, the rebellion exploded with incredible force. Within a month, hundreds of thousands of peasants rose up, overwhelming local government offices, killing corrupt officials, and seizing armories. The rebellion spread like wildfire across 8 different provinces. The sheer scale and speed of the uprising sent shockwaves through the imperial capital. The Han court was in a state of panic. The imperial army, weakened by years of corruption and neglect, was ill-equipped to handle a rebellion of this magnitude. This is where a critical and ultimately fatal decision was made. The court granted provincial governors and local strongmen unprecedented authority to raise their own private armies to fight the rebels. They essentially privatized warfare. This was the moment the warlords were born. Men like Cao Cao, Yuan Shao, Liu Bei, and Sun Jian, figures who would later dominate the Three Kingdoms era, all got their start fighting the Yellow Turbans. They raised troops, demonstrated their military and leadership skills, and carved out their own power bases. While they were technically fighting for the Han, they were really fighting for themselves. They saw the chaos not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. The central government had outsourced its own defense, and in doing so, it signed its own death warrant. The main force of the Yellow Turban Rebellion was eventually crushed within about a year. Zhang Jue himself died of illness, and his brothers were killed in battle. The professional, well-equipped private armies of the emerging warlords were simply too much for the poorly armed and trained peasant rebels. But even though the main rebellion was defeated, its spirit lived on. Remnants of the Yellow Turbans scattered across the country, turning to banditry and continuing to resist Han authority for decades. The real legacy of the rebellion wasn't the yellow heaven it failed to create, but the shattered empire it left behind. The Han Dynasty was now an empty shell. The emperor was a puppet, and real power rested in the hands of the warlords who now commanded massive, loyal armies. These men, once united against the Yellow Turbans, soon turned on each other, each vying to become the new master of China. The Yellow Turban Rebellion was the final push that sent the teetering Han Dynasty over the edge. It was a tragic, desperate cry from the common people against a system that had failed them utterly. It exposed the fatal weakness of the central government and directly created the conditions for the civil war that followed. The board was now set. The pieces, the warlords, were in place, and the game for control of China was about to begin. The era of heroes was born from an era of collapse. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into a pivotal moment in history, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more stories like this. Let me know in the comments what other historical turning points you'd like to explore. Until next time, stay curious.